Hey there, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be discussing another common coffee business question: how to start a small cafe if you have less capital. Now, in my previous video here, I discussed na you would need at least ₱500,000 for you to start a small cafe. If you haven't watched that video yet, it's here. You can look into the description box for the link. And what if wala pa akong ₱500,000 but I want to start a small cafe? What can I do? So for this video, I'll be discussing the different coffee business models, the types of cafe that you can consider so you can still start a small cafe kahit konti lang yung capital mo. So if you're interested with those, then keep on watching. Now, there are actually many ways that we can classify the types of cafe. However, the way I discuss coffee business models would be based on the size of the cafe and its capacity and its operations. First would be the biggest, yung mga usual na setup sa mga cafes done by big brands, wherein you would have a huge dine-in setup and you would have many customers in a day. Usually, nasa mga malls or mga big na mga entertainment centers. So if you're ready for at least ₱1,000,000 to do that, or even more, I believe, then you go for it. However, the four remaining, these are actually the small cafe options that you can consider if you have little capital for a cafe. So second, next to a big cafe setup is a coffee kiosk. Now, how is this different from a big cafe setup? Now, yung similarity niya, the same sila na merong permanent address. So, they are fixed in a specific location. However, the difference lie now on their size and its operations. Kasi yung coffee kiosk, it's much smaller. It can accommodate maybe 10 to 20 maximum customers for dine-in or even no dine-in. So, ito yung mga small cafes na purely for takeout lang, pwede siya. Ang advantage niya, less rental because smaller ang space, diba? Because the rental cost is based on the square meter. Lesser construction and renovation cost because it's much smaller, and the cost for renovation and construction is again based on square meter. Less furniture and fixture kasi nga, maliit lang yung cafe mo, maliit lang yung dine-in, so less number of tables and chairs and the kitchenware that you would need to buy, diba? And also, sometimes if purely for takeout siya, you don't need to buy tables and chairs. Less monthly overhead, and it's easier to manage. So in effect, it would have less overhead, monthly overhead, and it's easier to manage. So that's one that you can consider a coffee kiosk instead of a very big type of cafe. So you can consider mga 10 to 20 maximum na setup, or even you can do purely takeout na mga cafes. Just make sure that you are in the right location. And just like our TMC Pocket Cafes, we basically encourage them to do the coffee kiosk type. So if you're interested to be one of our TMC Pocket Cafe partners, here's the link. There's a video presentation there on how you can join and be one of our partners so that you can also start your own small cafe with my direct guidance. In summary, for coffee kiosk type, you would need maybe mga from starting 200K to 500K for that type. Pero if purely take out yung cafe mo, you could do mga 100 to 200,000. Again, depende din sa brewing tool mo. If you would be using espresso machine or really just manual brewing. Next would be the mobile cafe type. So, ang kaibahan lang niya, wala siyang specific location. So, it's literally mobile. It's going from one place to another, and you are bringing a car, no, or any type of vehicle, maybe a bicycle, motorcycle, etc. Ang advantage niya, again, little to no rental, most especially if yung place na magpa-park ka, walang bayad, diba? You would not need to do construction and renovation. You would not need furniture and fixtures. Perhaps you just bring few tables or none at all, diba? And then you just sell to those who are passing by to that specific place kung saan ka nagpark. In effect, you would have less monthly overhead and you can basically operate your cafe based on your own terms and your own time. Let's say every weekend lang kasi you have a 8 to 5 job during the weekdays. Kaso ang problema lang niya, what if wala kang sasakyan? So maybe what you can do is procure or rent a vehicle, and that would now have an effect to your monthly overhead. But overall, this type of cafe is much smaller to begin compared to a coffee kiosk. And also, less yung commitment mo kasi you can just operate whenever you want it. Then the third one, a pop-up coffee store. So this answers basically if wala kang sasakyan and you still want to have a cafe at your own terms, you can operate maybe weekends lang, whenever you want it, wala masyadong commitment kasi walang physical store, then you can do a pop-up coffee store. So how is it different sa mobile? Ang mobile, using car. Well, the pop-up coffee store, you can simply set up just using a table. So it's not literally mobile talaga. So we call it the pop-up, or I call it the pop-up coffee store. And we are also applying this actually in our own cafe, the Mezzanine Cafe. We have the physical store, the big one, but we also have our own pop-up coffee store, our TMC beverage cart, wherein we set up our own cart to events, weddings, and we serve coffee and milk tea. Now, the advantage of a pop-up coffee store, no monthly rental. You simply operate when there's a booking. Less equipment, no renovation, of course, no, walang construction, and it could also be occasional. You can also do pop-up coffee stores sa mga bazaar, especially during Christmas, pag may mga occasions, and if there are festivals, you can also do pop-up coffee stores. Kaya lang, sometimes if it's on a festival or if my event, no, wherein they gather people, you have to pay perhaps sino yung nag-organize for you to set up your pop-up coffee store. So somewhat that would be your rental, pero a much lesser compared sa rental ng big or yung mga coffee kiosk na with a physical store. Less din yung commitment because it's just a few days or maybe a month compared to coffee kiosk na usually yung rental would be 2 months advance, 2 months deposit, and then yung lease would be like at least 2 years, etc. etc. So it's also much flexible with a pop-up coffee store. And lastly, ito ang pinakamura, home-based coffee business or a home-based cafe. Of course, walang rental, no physical store, no vehicle needed, no cart needed. You can also operate kung kailan mo lang gusto, maybe during the weekends, again, because you have a work during the weekdays, and you have the flexibility to serve whatever type of coffee you would be serving. So during the pandemic, if you know the Mezzanine Cafe story, during the pandemic, we actually scaled back to a home-based type of cafe because no matter how we want to sell sa store, bawal lumabas, 'di ba? So walang customers, so we had to temporarily close. So what we did, we sold for us to survive. We sold drip bags, tea bags, cold brew, and you can actually also still do that at home. For as long as you just market it well to the right people, it can actually create profit almost the same with the big cafes. So let me recap with the different coffee business models. One, again, yung biggest is the big cafe. Of course, you would need at least 1 million pesos to do that. Then next would be the coffee kiosk, the smaller type of cafe, pero it could be with dine-in or purely takeout. So you would need maybe at least 100K to 600K for that one. The next would be a mobile coffee store. So if you have your own car, it's much lesser. If you also use a manual brewing technique, it's much lesser. You can even start first loss 50K or 50,000 pesos. Then, if wala kang sasakyan, you can do a pop-up coffee store. Just really set up a table and then sell coffee. If you'll be using manual coffee tools, you can actually just start with 20,000 to 50,000. Then the cheapest, home-based coffee business. Yung puhunan mo lang is yung materials to make a coffee. That's it. You can actually start na a small cafe at home. Now, if you're in Cebu and you want to learn the basics in coffee brewing, on how you can make your own recipes, we actually have a face-to-face training. The links are here on how you can register. If you're not in Cebu and you would also like to learn more from me, how to start a small cafe, I have an online program at the Small Coffee Business Academy. The link is also here. So overall, you can actually start a cafe even if you only have 10,000 pesos, 5,000 pesos, or even 1,000 pesos. Ang importante lang is you know how to roll out that money and manage your finances sa small business mo so you could reach more people and you can have more sales. Again, as what I always say, a cafe need not to be big for it to be profitable. upcoming video, I'll discuss naman the step-by-step process in starting a small cafe. So if you're interested with that, make sure you have subscribed already and hit the bell to be notified for my next videos. Thank you guys for watching. Bye!